Hi all, in this video we will try to understand the deity of Mrigashira Nakshatra. So the deity of Mrigashira Nakshatra is moon, and all the primary qualities of the moon, something like the fickleness, changeability, a tenderness, a gentleness, sensuality, perceptivity, inconstancy. So moon doesn't look the same every day, right? So every day moon changes. There's a moon's behavior. So these are all things, whatever the qualities that we said here, they are going to be applicable for the Mrigashira energy. So the nakshatra, it's basically relates the most to the Soma aspect of moon. So moon has so much of, so many qualities, in that the Soma aspect, right, it is very much related to this particular Mrigashira Nakshatra. It's something like, moon is known by many names if you understand our ancient Vedic literature. So every name given to moon is based upon its behavior, right? So Soma represents the nectar aspect of moon. Moon is the ruler of all kinds of fluids on the material as well as the astral plane, you can say. So anywhere, whenever you see some fluid, then it is somehow related to moon. So fluids in turn are the essence of life, you can say, because without fluids, I think most of the life cannot exist, right? So which this we can observe through the functioning of our own body even, right? So as we know, our physical bodies are comprised of more than something like 60% water and are biologically alive only because of the circulation of some vital juices in our body, right? So the physical counterpart of mind, the brain, is also dependent upon the transmission and interaction of fluids for its functioning. So moon in its Soma aspect is related to this essential life force on the physical, mental, etheric and astral plane. Soma is related to that. It's the essential life force in its Soma form. So moon is basically related to this. So this particular Mrigashira Nakshatra, it relates to our life force and vitality through the presence and circulation of these vital fluids, you can say, right? So Mrigashira is basically, it is related to the vitality aspect. So moon relates to the feminine aspect of nature, because basically moon is treated as feminine in Vedic astrology. So ancient Vedic sages saw this particular nakshatra as it's a form of Shakti, right? The primordial goddess energy. It has more feminine energy. If you understand, this particular nakshatra has a lot of feminine energy. In fact, Parvati Devi, the Devi Parvati, the wife of Shiva and one of the three main representatives of the universal goddess energy, is the main presiding deity of this particular nakshatra. So Parvati is the main deity of this nakshatra. So it is her own personal nakshatra, you can say. Mrigashira Nakshatra is related to Ma Parvati. So it's her personal nakshatra. You can also say it's from the ancient text. You can clearly see her moon is in Mrigashira. Basically, Parvati, Ma Parvati has her moon, means in the horoscope of Ma Parvati, you can say moon is in Mrigashira, right? So all her qualities like benevolence, charm, changeability, compassion, playfulness, joyous, some joyfulness, they're all related to this nakshatra. Her timidity and gentleness is not to be confused with some kind of cowardness or because it's the because she's very strong. She's the Adi Parashakti, you can say, right? So only of course some of the qualities are uh, the timidity you cannot relate to Ma Parvati, but the gentleness, right? Whatever qualities we said, the playfulness or the changeability, the charm, benevolence, all the stuff, right? You can relate them to Ma Parvati, and it's related to Mrigashira Nakshatra as well. So of course, so a person's behavior is not only depending upon the moon, mainly it depends upon the lagna, the ascendant, right? So that's the most important thing whenever you are trying to comment something about the behavior or the attitude of a person. And the Ma Parvati's fierce form is Durga or Ma Kali, right? So you just imagine the fierce form of Ma Parvati, right? So generally some people neglect the fixed, strong-willed and the wrathful aspect of this particular nakshatra. So the name Parvati translates, if you see, Parvati is a Sanskrit word. If you try to translate, then the meaning is she who has many parts, right? So you can also say that Mrigashira Nakshatra is a multifarious, it's a multifaceted personality is also involved here. So because Parvati, the name itself is saying that the she who has many parts, you can say. So here the moon's aspect is mainly the Soma, the deity, and also the Parvati. You can say in the Soma aspect, you can say the vitality part is taken into account, and Parvati, in the form of Parvati, you can say the gentleness, the benevolence, the charm, all these things are taken into account. So moon in its Soma aspect is an indulgent character with it's the so much of her romantic stuff. You can also say about this. So moon, if you observe, generally in the ancient Vedic literature, moon gets into trouble due to affairs with others' wives. That is one problem you can notice in the ancient Vedic literature. See, so many ancient Vedic stories are actually the stories are related to the scientific facts that our ancient Vedic sages observed. So they just try to put in the form of stories so that the future generations can decode the stories and try to find out the facts, right? That is the reason why the stories are actually narrated that way, so that the knowledge can be passed through stories to different generations, and then at least in somewhere down the line in the generation, somebody can decode the stories and try to find out the scientific facts involved in those stories. So moon generally has the trouble, right, due to his affairs with others' wives. So according to one very famous symbolism, or one very famous legend, you can say, Mercury was produced out of the union of Moon with Jupiter's wife, right? It's a kind of it's something like you can try to understand. It's something like before Big Bang or just after the Big Bang. Let's say just after the Big Bang, maybe the Jupiter's wife means something like the Jupiter's part of the Jupiter, right? A part of the Jupiter mixed with Moon, and then some part of that came out as Mercury. Maybe you can think on these lines as a scientific thing. It's not like just it's not a very good idea just to imagine Jupiter as a person and his wife, and Moon had some kind of a fire, and then finally Mercury was born out of them. It's not like that. You can think of this as a scientific story. It's a scientific thing. You can decode it this way. When Jupiter was formed initially, a part of the Jupiter was came out. It came out. Part of the Jupiter came out of it, and that particular part actually, it mixed with the Moon. Basically, the Moon's part, the whole Moon, and then some years down the line, some part of this particular structure, the Moon and part of the Jupiter, right? This particular whole thing, from this particular whole thing, I think we can say some part came out, and that part is actually the Mercury, right? So it's you can think on these lines, right? The scientific stories you may need to, it's something like our sages research was put into some kind of stories, right? So you need to think this way. That is the best approach to actually, Jupiter's wife was actually called as a Tara, right? So Tara you can think of as a Nakshatra, maybe, right? A Nakshatra came out of Jupiter. Even scientifically also, Jupiter was actually, it had to be a star, but somehow it just missed that particular opportunity, or you can say it somehow missed that state of becoming a Nakshatra. Just go through that, just try to research on that, but strongly we can clearly say our ancient wisdom, the Indian ancient wisdom, is actually put into so many stories, the scientific wisdom. So intellect is of course it's a more conscious force which actually governs over the unconscious mind, right? So in the universal scheme of things, mind couldn't have just been by itself without a governing faculty for long, right? So just think on these lines, scientifically think, scientifically, not just as a story. Our the whole legends described in the ancient Vedic literature were all, they were trying to depict some scientific facts. Even our culture was actually, it was clearly disturbed by so many intrusion of so many other invasion of so many other people, and then it was disturbed. So that is about the symbolism of it. The whole thing is something like Mrigashira is vitality, as the Soma's aspect, and also the Parvati aspect is something like it's very gentle, it's very calm, and it's charming and all the stuff. You can take it into account, and you can also understand the deer's behavior is coming into the picture here. So whenever you talk about Mrigashira, you need to think of the deer, and if the person is of Mrigashira Lagna, somewhere the person behaves very timid, so very gentle, very smooth, soft, benevolent. So this kind of things you can expect from the person, right? So thanks for watching this video.